Welcome to another edition of the Mainly Hoops Best Bets episode. It's our fourth edition now, and to before we get into some of the games tomorrow, just wanted to give kind of a recap of the last week, at least in our best bets. Overall, now up 15 and a half units on the season, up 7.3 units in the last week. So if you want to get in on the same action we're on, join the Discord. Can't stress it enough. The Discord is where we put the bets early. Last night, Cody, I believe you put the Nebraska line in there around 7 p.m. at whatever -2 or 2.5. That line moved all the way to 4. So I know they ended up covering both of those. But if you want to get the best value, make sure to join that Discord because that's where you're going to get it. And then the best bets articles that we put out are pretty much coming out every day, except for the days that maybe it's a slower day and we just have a prop or two. Then we'll just put those in the Discord. But overall, join the Discord, follow the action account. That's where you're going to see our bets the earliest. And then the best bets articles, that's just our analysis overall that will come out. But likely that's when the line's already moved.
Yeah, definitely join the Discord just because, lines move super quick. So, and I try to stay on top of it for like right when they come out. I try to release them when we can get them at the best number. I know like not all books are available to everyone. So I try to give more widely available numbers in there. So definitely try your best to get into the Discord. And, we've made some pretty good money in there so far because the best bets is like not even, it's maybe a quarter of the portion of the bets that we make throughout the year. So there's a lot more action in the Discord to take advantage of. And we've been pretty successful so far and kind of hope to keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. And hope to keep it going tomorrow with a team that's looking for a big win, and that's the Arizona Wildcats. This is probably my favorite bet of the day. I don't know about you, but this is just I think a good spot for them playing on a neutral site against the UCLA team that I think is being a bit overvalued. And I think Arizona is being a little undervalued right now. They're not as bad as they've been. So this seems like a good get right spot for them.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised they came out as a small favorite, even though it's in their home state. It's a neutral court game. I thought we'd see it at like a pick or maybe even a small dog, but I'm okay laying it within a possession. I think they're going to be super motivated. It's more of a spot play than anything. Laying the 2.5. I think it's also okay to lay the money line if you don't want to mess with any late game shenanigans that Caleb Love might give you.
Before you continue, I did before we hopped on, I saw one line on one side up to 4 on this game.
So it might be 4. Hopefully there's some 3.5s.
Yeah, it's growing. I think there's some action on Arizona.
I see a 3 right now, so hopefully it stays there by Saturday morning. I would take 3. I don't know. I'm not sure how much higher I would go. I'm not sure if I'd recommend a 4 or not, but it's the spot for me here. Like this is Arizona's last opportunity for like a big non-conference win, and they don't really have any yet this year. They didn't really perform all that well in Atlantis. They got to win over Indiana, but who knows what that win means anymore, as they don't really look all that good. I think they can out-rebound UCLA in this game, as that's kind of their weak point on the defensive side for the Bruins anyway. But I mean, obviously the defense for Arizona hasn't been as good as we expected it to be, but I don't think UCLA can really expose them from the outside. Like that's kind of where Arizona filters a lot of UCLA's offense. UCLA shooting a bit over their heads right now, especially in that Oregon game. I think they went 11 for 21 from 3. I don't expect that to continue, especially on a neutral floor where it's a little bit tougher to shoot at times. And I'm just not sold on this UCLA team on the offensive side in general. They don't really run efficient offense. I don't really see any sort of ceiling with this offense. And they also haven't really played much of competition this year. They played a pretty easy schedule. And when they've had to step up in class, they've looked vulnerable, even on the defensive side. Like Nate Biddle had success on the interior. I think he went for like 22. And Arizona has a far better front line than what Oregon has. It's at least like firepower and like offensive rebounding standpoint. I think they can have some real advantages in this game. Let's just kind of hope that Caleb Love and even KJ Lewis and Jaden Bradley don't shoot them out of this game. Hopefully, it's more of a motivational spot for this defense to really lock up this Bruin offense that I don't like all that much.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Arizona should have some success on the interior. I think that Arizona is just going to be motivated overall, and try to expose that part of the UCLA defense. And I like I said yesterday, I think Caleb Love does have a good game here. As much as I maybe hate to say it because I'm not a big Caleb Love fan, but I think that he's just going to be ready to go. I think, this is kind of his last chance. He's playing to continue playing basketball unless he just wants to be done after this year. But like nobody's going to want this guy if he looks disinterested and has a bad attitude. Like he's got to figure it out for himself. So I like Arizona to win this game. I wouldn't be all that surprised if they win somewhere in that like 8 to 12 point range. I know it's still if it's up to a 4 or 5 point spread, if it gets that high, like it's a bigger number to lay. But, I'm pretty confident in this Wildcat team getting it done tomorrow.
Yeah, especially if it stays inside of a possession. That's where I'd recommend it. When it gets to 3.5, 4, it gets a little bit dicey, but the spot is crucial here.
Yeah. Speaking of spots, we have Tennessee against Illinois tomorrow. Tennessee 1.5 point favorites on the road. Obviously the number one team in the country sitting at 9-0. But this is going to be a real test for them. Illinois seems to be playing some good basketball. So, I believe you're on the same side I am here on Illinois.
Yeah, definitely on Illinois here. It's a sell high spot on Tennessee. Like their offense, I think, is playing well over their heads right now. They haven't been really tested on that side. They haven't really played an elite defense by any means. Maybe Louisville, who's been a solid defense throughout the year, and they gave them some issues on that, and they turned the ball over a ton against the Cardinals. So, Chaz Lanier's been great on the offensive side, averaging close to 19 a game. But Illinois does a great job running shooters off the line. Like they prevent threes at an elite rate. They're 32nd nationally in 3-point rate allowed, and they're only 27% allowed from three this year. Maybe a little bit of that is luck, but I do think a lot of it is from them running shooters off the line and filtering everything into Thomas Lavovicic with their drop coverage and just staying like connected to shooters in general. And I think that's going to be crucial in this game, that they run a lot through Lanier in the half court, especially. So yeah, that's a big factor. And, I think Illinois in that aspect will put more pressure on the creation of guys like Sakai Ziegler, Jemai Mashak, and Jordan Gainey. And I don't think that's really their strong suit. I'd say that's probably the weakest part of this offense. Illinois, they're also going to be able to keep Tennessee off the glass. Illinois is 15th nationally in defensive rebound rate. That's another spot where Tennessee is going to have to create value in this game if they're not making shots. And Tennessee's front court is pretty banged up right now. So I don't know if that's something that they're going to be able to rely on. They lost Estrella for the year. They're dealing with Cameron Carr. He's out for a little bit right now, who's great on the offensive glass, despite only being like 6'5". So yeah, that's definitely another factor here. And I think Illinois can basically make the rebound battle equal, which I think is a massive advantage for them. And they can space out Tennessee's defense. It's going to be hard to score on this defense in general. Every team in the country struggles to score against it, but they can get stops and get out and run as well and use their spacing with guys like who we had some questions about in this game, whether he's going to turn the ball over, be a little bit too loose with it. I trust him in a big spot. Ivicic can space the floor, bring Okpara away from the rim. And when they play small with Milicic, I think Ivicic can take advantage of that as well. And then Will Riley and Ben Hummerkaus are going to be able to hit outside shots as well. They're all 35% on pretty high volume. And overall, I'm just bought into the upside of Illinois lately. I've kind of flipped my opinion on this team in a motivational spot here. They had a tough game against the last SEC opponent they played in Alabama, and I think they want to prove that they can, play with the big boys in the country.
Yeah. As we talked about in our last episode, I think that the key thing to monitor here is Yakachonis, and like, does he get bothered by Tennessee's physicality? And does that push him off his spots sometimes? Does he kind of turtle up and get careless with the ball when they're being physical with him? Because this Tennessee defense is legit in the backcourt, especially. But he's got size, and I think that's going to be a big factor for him to overcome that. I think Boswell is going to be able to help relieve some pressure there as well. So I think Illinois does a good enough job taking care of the ball, but that would really be the only reason why I would be a little bit hesitant. But I'm definitely on the Illinois side because I think that they do take care of the ball enough in this game. But I think if they do lose this game, it will be because of their inability to take care of the basketball and leading to like live ball turnovers that lead to runouts and open threes in transition for Tennessee.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's really my only issue in this game is, can they take care of the ball at a high enough level? Everyone else has seemed to do a pretty good job taking care of the ball. Like, they're inside the top 50 in turnover rate in the country. So I'm not extremely worried about it. And yeah, as for Boswell, like, he's going to be able to stick to Lanier all night. They should be able to stick to him all night long. Lanier's a little bit thinner, and Boswell, he's definitely the more physical guard there. And if he can chase him around, chase him off the 3-point line, it's going to give Illinois a huge edge.
Yeah, no doubt. So the next game at State Farm Arena in Atlanta features Florida and Arizona State. Arizona State's probably the best team Florida's played so far. Florida's up to 9th in the country, and nobody's really talking enough about this Arizona State team and how well they've played. I feel like people have still just kind of hung their hat on Arizona State losing to Duke by like 50 in the preseason, but like that's not this team. They're not that bad at all. In fact, they're quite good, right? I think they're 8-1. And they come into this game as 8-point dogs against the Gators. At one point, it even got up to 9. A little bit ago, before we got on here, I saw it down to 7.5 in some places. I know there's still some 8s out there, but the Sun Devils are going to be coming in here looking to play spoiler on a team in Florida that's probably being a little bit overvalued right now. I coming into the year, I think we had them maybe like 7th or 8th in the SEC, which is probably a bit too high. They're probably a little bit better than that, but even still, I don't think they're necessarily the 9th best team in the country. It's just really a product of who they've played so far. Like they're a good team, don't get me wrong, but this is going to be a real test for them.
Yeah, they're definitely a good team. I probably have them like more fringe top 15 than a lot of places have them at. Like AP poll has them 9. KenPom has them, I believe, in the top 10 right now. I believe he has them 8th in his adjusted efficiency right now. So I just think that's a little bit too high. They haven't been tested at all. And Arizona State can give them some real problems, especially the point of attack defense of the 2 Florida bigs that they're going to throw out there all the time. I think Arizona State's going to have a real advantage taking them off the bounce. I think anybody in their starting 5 can stretch out to the perimeter and dribble drive against them and really break down this defense, in my opinion, especially a guy like Bashir Jihad. He's going to be able to win off the bounce against any big Florida throws out there. He's an athletic 6'9" with a pretty versatile game. So he's definitely going to give them some trouble. And in Florida, they haven't played an offense that's inside the top 100 in KenPom efficiency all year. Arizona State's 60th. So this is going to be a major step up in class. I think the best offense they played before this was Wichita State, who was like 150. And yeah, they gave them a lot of problems. So it's but this is a much different team. It's definitely going to be a huge step up in class. And on the defensive side for Arizona State, they at least have the athletes to slow down the Florida offensive rebounding attack. I'm not saying they're going to completely neutralize it. But I do think the combo of Quaintance and Phillips can hold their own. If one guy gets in foul trouble, they can throw another 7-footer in there to at least hold their own on the glass. I'm not going to say they're going to win it by any means, and I don't love this ASU defense in general. but I do think this game could really turn into a shootout. And Arizona State, they have huge wins this year. Like they beat St. Mary's, who's a great team. The Mountain West, maybe arguably the favorite in New Mexico right now. And they also beat Grand Canyon and kind of handled Grand Canyon. And their only loss, they hung tough with Gonzaga for 40 minutes.
And they were winning. They were winning that game.
Won the game.
They were winning that game for a good chunk of it, weren't they? I mean, they were winning.
Yeah,
they still were. Lead the second half.
They were up 5, like pretty late.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I expect a super high scoring game here. I actually lean to the over as well, just due to, Florida's defense especially being overrated. And I think this is a super like fast paced up and down game. So I think there's some real upside for Arizona State to steal this win on a neutral floor, especially if Florida, they get a little bit 3-point reliant at times with this offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona State won this game.
Yeah. Do you see the kind of game that resembles that of Florida, Colorado in the tournament last year? That kind of high scoring?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, Colorado's not as physical, but
yeah. Should be a fun game though. I lean the Arizona State over or the Arizona State cover. I mean, I just think that Florida hasn't really been tested yet, like you said, and they're going to get tested here in their next 2 games. I know North Carolina hasn't played very well, but they got Arizona State tomorrow in Atlanta. Then they'll head up to Charlotte and play North Carolina on Tuesday in the Jordan Classic. So, they have a couple key games here that will really give them a measuring stick of where they're really at, I think, and the rest of the country for that matter.
Yeah, and I really like these Arizona State guards too, for what it's worth. I like Alston Mason a lot, coming from Missouri State. I thought he was great. Now he's been pretty good this year too. And Josan Sannon, the freshman, has really lit it up. He's shooting over 50% from 3 right now. He's been super impressive. They have a lot of weapons, and I think they're going to be able to kind of expose this Florida defense. They had issues last year, and they haven't really made super great adjustments outside of adding Elijah Martin, and Chinyelu's been a little bit of an upgrade, but I don't really see it with this Florida defense, especially long term. And I think like the slide of this defense kind of starts tomorrow.
Yeah. Those are probably our favorites of tomorrow. But then there are a few others that we lean or want to quickly go through that are going to be worth a look. We have Seton Hall tomorrow playing against Rutgers. And I know I'm not a Seton Hall guy, but I know you love them as a dog. They come into this game against Rutgers after they had their big win the other night. They're 12.5-point dogs in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty disgusting to take this, but I think I have to with a Shaheen Holloway coach team. I mean, he's 25-12 against the spread when he's getting 5.5 or more points. And it makes a ton of sense with all of his teams that he's had, even back in the St. Peter's days, being super defensively minded and playing at a super slow pace. Like Seton Hall, they're 362nd in pace right now, and their defense is pretty elite, honestly. They have versatility, they have length, athleticism all over the floor, and it's going to give guys like Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey a tough time. And yeah, it's basically an auto bet for me when this team's getting double digits. I mean, the offense is horrible. It's not fun to watch, and they could turn the ball over a ton in this game, leading to this game getting a little bit faster paced. But in a rivalry game, I'm gonna back the dog here regardless, and hope the Pirates don't turn it over too much. They actually shoot the ball okay too, with Coleman and Jenkins and Scotty Middleton a little bit too. So they might be able to shoot their way into this game as well. Possibly bring this thing down to the wire in a rivalry game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So, but I'm definitely taking the 12.5. There's no way I'm touching a money line here.
Yeah. I don't really have many thoughts on this game. Not a Seton Hall guy, as you might have heard in some of the other episodes, especially after their very rocky start. Just their lack of offense is not good. But their defense should be solid enough in this game where that's a pretty big number to lay on Rutgers right now, who I think has a lot of volatility in the way that they play. Harper's been good, but they have other guys that are going to make them extremely volatile, like Ace Bailey. So, I think 12.5 is that's definitely the side you have to be on here. That's a big number to lay on a young Rutgers team still trying to figure some things out, I think.
For sure. I mean, Ace Bailey can shoot them in any game. He can shoot them out of any game. So I would definitely fade them as a double-digit favorite. I'll do it a lot throughout the rest of this year, and I'll especially do it with a team like Seton Hall that I like as a bigger underdog.
Yeah. The next game, I love this game. The Dayton Flyers playing against Marquette. Talked about it yesterday. Dayton's a team I'm pretty high on. They played really well in Maui. They've hung tough with some really good teams. They played a tough schedule, and here they are again playing Marquette. Have them at +1. I've seen some picks out there now, and this is at Dayton, correct?
At Dayton, yeah.
Yep. So Dayton's a tough team to beat at home. This Marquette team is going in there, and they have their flaws, right? And Dayton has the guards, I think, to match this Marquette team. So if it's me, I'm on the Flyers. I'm hammering the Flyers. I think this is like a huge resume builder for them. This is going to be a very quality win that we're going to look back on later in the season, come March Madness. And if they don't win their conference, this is going to be a game that is the reason why they made the tournament as an at-large.
For sure. I mean, this is arguably their biggest game of the year. Getting it at home against a marquee team, Marquette sitting in the top 10 still it's just a massive game. It'll probably be bigger than any A10 game that they play this year, outside of maybe VCU if they're playing for a conference title. But yeah, I just keep banging my head up against the wall, fading Marquette, and it hasn't worked all year. But these spots they're not favorable for Marquette at all. And maybe they're spot proof because they play with so much intensity. Shaka Smart always has them playing up against competition, and we have a pick here. I've seen some Dayton -1s too, which
love it.
It's a bit insane, but
love it.
It's such a big game and it's such a big spot for them, and it fits schematically. Like, they take care of the ball at an elite level. They have 3 guards in Bennett, Posh Alexander, and Malachi Smith. And Malachi Smith is playing great ball right now. He finally looks 100% healthy. They have the shooting. They have guys like Santos. Smith shoots it well, and Bennett shoots it well too. And then you have a former high major guard in Zed Key who can take advantage of a smaller front line of Marquette. So I also really like the over in this game because I don't like Dayton's defense all that much. I think Cam Jones can have another field day unless Posh Alexander can kind of keep him in front consistently. It feels like the Wisconsin game that they just played, where it was just a ton of efficiency for both teams. I think Dayton has even more efficiency against Marquette than Wisconsin did. But I don't see a ton of stops happening in this game. But if there were stops to be made, I would trust the home team to make them behind their home crowd. So I will take the Flyers here, +1. I'd take it anywhere around like -1.5. I think that's as far as I would go. I would start taking money line after that.
Yeah. What was it a couple of years ago when Kansas, I think, was top 5 and they went and played at Dayton, and that game went right down to the wire. Dayton won that game, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Dickie V was on the call.
Oh yeah, this was a neutral site game. They were like a 8-point dog or something like that, and it was I believe it was neutral site.
So I mean, like, Dayton consistently hangs around year after year with top teams. So I think they're going to win this game. I think this is a statement for them right here for the rest of their season. So go Flyers, baby. Might have to get myself a Dayton hat or something. Dayton shirt. Add it to the
Oh, it's definitely
collection.
worth it, especially if they're gonna make me some money tomorrow. I'll throw a few dollars at it for a hat. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
I'm already doing it for Arizona State plus the 8. So
the next game, probably like the game of the day in terms of like basketball quality. We got Gonzaga UConn at MSG. Gonzaga minus 2.5. I've seen some 2s out there. Another big game for UConn, as we've talked about, a third straight big game after their return home from Maui, after Baylor, Texas, and now Gonzaga here in at Store South, as they like to call it, like we said yesterday. So this is another big test for them. And I want to say I'm on the Huskies, but this Gonzaga team's also going to be motivated after their loss last weekend.
yeah, and I think this line has gone a little bit too far down. It actually opened 4, and I would have recommended the 4. And if it goes back, I'll definitely end up taking 4. But it sits at like 1.5 or 2 right now. It's just not all that intriguing for a Gonzaga team that I do think is better. But I do think you need to add in a little bit of a home court advantage for UConn, maybe 2 points at the most here. So it's definitely, I think it's a pretty sharp number at this point in time. But I do think UConn is still underrated from their Maui trip. Like the defensive metrics are kind of just, it completely fell apart for them. I mean, they gave up a million threes. I think they gave up over 50% from 3 in that tournament. So, but they've been a lot better lately. And the defense has been very good, especially against Texas. They locked down Texas. And I do think they can slow down the pace in this game and kind of give Gonzaga more issues than they would like. That Gonzaga loves to get out in transition and generate baskets that way. But I do think UConn's half-court offense ends up being the difference in this game. So, and they can expose Gonzaga's rim defense that hasn't been exposed by a lot of teams yet. We know Kentucky did it in the second half and in overtime of their win over Gonzaga. So I expect more of that in this game. I think Taurus Reed and Samson Johnson have a nice day here. And even like if they can kind of shrink Gonzaga's defense a bit, and Caravan and McNeely can hit some shots here as well, if the rim defense ends up being like way worse than I even think it's going to be. So I'll take UConn here. Probably won't bet it unless it gets up to 4.
Yeah. I like UConn here, as we talked about in our last episode. I just think their coaching, the way that they play, they're going to be able to control this game and basically a home game. But I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Gonzaga come out and like respond well. They haven't played since last Saturday, right? So this has probably been a long week for them, reflecting on that second half and overtime against Kentucky. So I expect them to come out and be very motivated. They've had all week to think about that loss. So, and what better way to respond than against the defending national champions 2 times in a row, and against the team that you've lost to twice in a row, right? So I think that Gonzaga is going to be hungry. If I were to be on it, I would say I like UConn, but I could really see this game going either way, I think.
Yeah, I could too. And I just have too much respect for Gonzaga's offense to take this at 1.5 or 2. It just wouldn't make a ton of sense. I think it'd be kind of reaching to make a bet on a big game, which I don't recommend doing. Well, it's not a good proposition over time. So I would definitely wait for a bigger number if you like UConn. If you like Gonzaga, it's really not too bad of a number to take. I think the value is decent for them, but once it gets a little bit bigger, it definitely is overpriced for Gonzaga.
Yeah. Now the final game I want to bring up, Wisconsin and Butler. Butler's +4 in this game, and and that's the side that I really like. I think this Wisconsin team, they're reeling a little bit, so they should be motivated. They've lost 3 in a row, but Butler's lost 2 in a row. They just got upset by North Dakota State. This is a big response game for them, and honestly, like this is more a play on me just not being that high on Wisconsin. Like they overperformed early. I thought Wisconsin wasn't a team I was super high on coming in. They've been in the AP poll now for a couple of weeks. They're 20th right now, and I just don't think they belong there. Butler, I think, has the ability to hang with Wisconsin here. I definitely see a world, and I mean, so does Vegas, obviously, but I see Wisconsin potentially winning this game. But I think that 4 is just too much. I think it's like more of a one possession game or something. It'll be interesting to see how, because Butler's played small a lot this year. And tomorrow I think they're going to have to play Andre Screen a little bit more, and he hasn't played a ton of minutes, like 16 minutes a game, but I think against this Wisconsin team, he's going to need to play a little bit more and protect the rim. And he's done a good job of that in his limited minutes. He's averaging over a block a game in his limited minutes, but I think, Telford and Pierre Brooks are coming off big games against North Dakota State despite the loss. They just didn't really get anything out of anyone else in that game. Patrick McCaffrey shot it terribly, but he's been pretty efficient so far this season. And so I look for them at home to bounce back against this Wisconsin team, who I still think is being a little bit overvalued, especially on the road. So I like Butler to. I don't know if I want to go as far as to say I like him to win this game, but that's if I were to say, I guess gun to my head, I'd probably say I like Butler to cover and maybe win this game.
Yeah, I would agree with this side. A big aspect is Butler doesn't really foul all that much. And Wisconsin's created a ton of their offensive value by getting to the line, especially John Tonje, who's been basically the engine. He basically lives at the line. He has been efficient in other areas, but he really tries to just put his head down, get to the rim, and draw a foul. And if he's going up against Andre Screen, who's definitely going to play more in this game, I would assume, he's not going to be able to, generate any efficiency at the line because Screen plays pretty well. He's with his verticality. I think overall, I think this Butler team is pretty solid in that area. I do like the efficiency in this game to be pretty high on both sides. 2 defenses that don't really bother you at all. 2 good shooting teams. I would recommend an over here if I were to take anything. It's a possible play for me. I'm not sure where that number's at lately. I believe it opened like 145. I think it ticked up a bit, but I do like the efficiency to be super high in this game. And a closer spread, it can go over with late game free throws as well. Yeah, I would side with Butler, and I would recommend an over.
Yeah. So, tomorrow's really the first Saturday. There's only one college football game tomorrow. Army, Navy. So this is really the first Saturday that we're getting like a full packed slate, which is great. College basketball Saturdays are closer and closer to being fully back in full force, and tomorrow's the first one of that. So, welcome back to that. Pretty exciting, but a lot of action out there tomorrow. But like we said at the top of the show, make sure you're joining the Discord, following the action account so that you can get in on some of these lines early, not just for tomorrow, but for days moving forward, because that's where we post it the soonest. So make sure you're doing that. Check out our best bets articles that are coming out tomorrow, and hopefully we can all make some cash tomorrow. But best of luck to everyone, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.